Welcome to another episode of It's a Long Beach Thing. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and like us on Facebook and on Instagram. We're going to have a fun show today. I'm able to bring in an expert, but also my friend, uh, Greg Ernst, real estate expert and Long Beach musician. Musician? No, wait. Musician. Greg Ernst, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Paul. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. We were joking because we did a networking event earlier today, and now we're talking again on a podcast. So it's kind of fun
Yeah.
to talk to you twice in one day.
Yeah, I barely got a chance to talk to you at the event earlier, but I'm glad we can catch up today. Thank you for having me on.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So let's start here. What is your first association with this great city of Long Beach?
All right, this is a fun one. Buckle
Okay.
up. So I this goes back to the 60s, and I was born. I was a little tiny baby at the time. We lived in West Los Angeles in a little town called Palms. And I remember a couple very clear things. The first thing I recall was that we were up and my brother and I were loaded into the car as the very first hint of light was coming up over the horizon. I remember this. And somebody asked my dad where we were going. And he said, "We're going to go see something special." And I probably slept in the car. But where we ended up was downtown in the harbor. And that was the day the Queen Mary came into Long Beach under its own power. I remember tidbits of that day vividly. I remember the crisp, clean air and the wind was blowing. There was a few puffy clouds, some white caps on the water, and here comes this beautiful ship. And my wife thinks I'm crazy for having memories that long ago, but I was about a year and a couple months old at the time. I was a very young baby. And one of my most vivid memories was I was chatting up an older girl who was probably two, and we were playing rocks in the dirt as the event was happening. But that was my very first introduction to Long Beach when I was just a tiny baby in diapers, and it was a really cool experience. Years later, we came down into Long Beach when I was probably 10 or 9 or something like that, and we saw some Long Beach Grand Prix in the very early years, which was also really cool experience for me being a race geek and a motorhead. But I remember driving by Ocean Boulevard and along the bluff and seeing the oil islands. And I just thought they were the coolest apartments ever. Like, those are the neatest. I would love to live there. Little did I know at the time that they were oil rig islands, but they left a mark too. So years later, we moved to Long Beach. I think I was actually about 10 when we moved to Long Beach, and I've been here ever since. I love this town.
You know, that's crazy information that I didn't know. Maybe I should know, especially I'm doing a podcast about Long Beach. I did not know that the Queen Mary originally came in on its own power. I did not know that. I thought it was shipped here, and, but I didn't know that it actually was still moving and was able to do it on its own, or she was
Yeah.
able to do it on its own, rather, to that spot.
Yeah, and that was her final voyage, and they really tried to play up this kind of British square vibe because it's a British ship, and that was, I guess, it traded hands so many times, but they were trying to have like bobbies and the big hats and the whole thing on in those early days. It was interesting to see. I visited some years later, but there was many years that went by that I had not didn't experience it at all for a while.
You know, I found a cool tidbit about the Queen Mary that I didn't know that you may know that the Queen Mary is quite a bit larger than the Titanic.
Yeah, the Titanic, even though the name it's in the name, it's a significantly smaller ship. Yeah, I saw a side by side one time. I think they have some models on the Queen Mary with ships and relative sizes.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. Okay, so first off, I mean that's pretty remarkable that you weren't even two yet, and you have that memory. I gotta believe. Well, I don't have any memories that early on, so kudos to you. You must have had a wonderful childhood to be able to remember something that far back like that. Not that you're
Yeah, I
old,
don't
but I'm
know.
just
I don't know
saying.
if that is a before after a cause or effect, but I did have a pretty decent childhood. But there's just tidbits that I remember from various times and spaces, and that just happens to be one of the really profound ones that I remember. It's just such a weird day for us, little kid, little tiny baby. Just I remember a lot of little things like that, but that's one of the most vivid, strangely unique memories I have being a young child.
So whereabouts, when you moved here permanently when you were 10, whereabouts were you living at that time?
We were living in a little town called Westchester, which is near LAX.
Oh, so you weren't in Long Beach still yet.
I was no, that was before I moved to Long Beach.
Okay.
But we lived in Westchester, and we had lived in Palms for a while. And then my parents decided to buy a house, their first house, and that ended up in Long Beach near Heartwell Park. Started going to Patrick Henry Elementary School, and met a bunch of people. And I was the new kid for a while, but it was I was welcomed by a few people, a couple of whom I'm still friends with today. In fact, we have this little get together once every 6 months or a year where the people that we know from Patrick Henry get together, maybe between 3 and 6 of us that get together for a drink and a snack. And it's really cool to talk to people you haven't seen necessarily for a bunch of decades. And it's been really fun. Connected with some really good people.
Patrick Henry. Now, is that now where McBride is today?
Nope, I think it's still called Patrick Henry. I wouldn't bet my life on it, but I think it's called Patrick Henry to this day. I think
Okay.
it's an immersion school now. I think it's a Spanish primary language school, but I'm not. It's been a minute since I've been in elementary
Okay.
school.
Whereabouts is it? I know it's around Hartwell Park, but whereabouts do you?
It's in between, so it's just south of Hartwell Park, so basically south of Carson, north of Wardlow, east of Woodruff, and west of Palo Verde. So if you're heading across Hartwell Park and right about where you run into Woodruff, where Glory Days is and all that stuff, it's just across the park from there.
Oh, right on. Okay, yeah, yeah. There was another school, another middle school of sorts that was where McBride was, and I don't know what the name. Maybe that was DeMille.
DeMille?
DeMille.
DeMille, I think, yeah.
Okay, got it.
And
Okay,
I didn't go to that school. I went to Marshall Junior High.
got it.
Now it's Marshall Middle Academy or something.
Right on. Well, I went. I think we talked about this, but I went to St. Maria Goretti, which is on the other
Nice.
side
Uh-huh.
of Hartwell Park, there, right next to the golf, right across the street from the golf course.
Yeah, I know that place well. My when I first brought my wife to Long Beach, some of our friends' bands were playing the St. Maria Goretti Carnival.
Mm.
So we went and showed up. And of course, these are like punk rock bands singing all kinds of blasphemous stuff. And and the Knights of Columbus were selling Jello shots and getting everybody
Really?
wasted. Yes, they were like, yeah, here's shots, and I think they're $1 per shot. Nice Knights of Columbus ladies and men, and everybody was getting pretty well trashed. So St. Maria
Wow.
Goretti knows how to party.
I guess so. I went to that as a kid. Maybe I was too young for that type of action, but I just remember the cakewalk with the sisters running it. I don't remember that, but I hear later on that there was a lot of bands that came in. I don't know to this day. I haven't been to that carnival for a while, although I'm going to a reunion soon. I don't know how the carnival is to this day.
Well, it was a hoot then. That's been a few years. They might have cleaned up their act a little bit, but you never know. Catholics like to party.
Yep, yep, absolutely. So, where did you go to high school?
So I went from Patrick Henry Elementary. Most of the people split off to two schools, DeMille and Marshall, and then about 80% of the people that went to Marshall ended up going to Milliken. I was north of that area, so I went to Lakewood High School. So even though I've never lived in Lakewood, I went to Lakewood High School.
Yeah, well, I would now that you tell me where Patrick Henry is, Lakewood High School, you probably almost could throw a rock from there to get there, right?
Yep, yep. We walk or ride our skateboards to school all the time.
So then you get out of Lakewood, and then where was it from there? Did you what did you go to college? I don't remember.
I did. I actually, so I was after high school, I did some that's when I started getting into music. In fact, while I was in high school, I started playing drums and fancying myself of, getting in a band and all that stuff. I ended up being in some pretty popular bands over the years. But I went to Long Beach City College, and really that's where I kind of became more settled into who I was going to become as a person. Met a lot of interesting, creative, productive, kind-hearted people who were into music and or art or whatever, but a lot of it was based around the people in the music scene. And went to Long Beach City College for more years than is specified on the 2-year degree, but did some traveling. I did a really cool trip to Europe for 3 months with backpack and on practically $0, and that was during that time as well. That was an amazing trip. $15 a day or something like that
Wow.
for the whole summer. It was really cool.
So when you were getting into music in Lakewood and Long Beach City College, what and you said like you were in some pretty big bands. Did you think that maybe this was going to be my life? I'm going to be a rock star?
Well, there's certainly an element of that, and some of the people that we played with ended up being professional musicians, and including the guys in Sublime and Stone Temple Pilots, and my friend Scott is now playing for the Who. Like some of these guys who really stuck with it. But we had a really popular band called Wood and Smoke, and a huge following locally, but we never got really past. We did some tours and we played, the Troubadour and the Whiskey and the Roxy and all of those places a few times. We had a really good interest from record companies and, the LA Times, and, they called me out specifically as a qualified drummer, which is rare and really nice. But yeah, we had a great time and just created a beautiful gathering of people with kind hearts and creative spirit and really good people. It wasn't like a decadent rock star scene or anything like that. It was really just good people who found our music as a magnet to be drawn to. It was really cool. It was an honor to be included in that.
Well, you mentioned Sublime, which is definitely a Long Beach band. So talk about your relationship with them coming up.
So they were kind of the scrappy party band, and we were playing bigger clubs, and they would play with us now and then, and they always tried to pick up our girls, and probably succeeded now and then. Eventually, those guys started hitting the road with their tapes, and they're with Mike Happold, who was the guy who sort of engineered their recordings. He did a great job getting them into very good studios and making their music sound really good. But they're a pretty scrappy bunch of guys, so um, we didn't hang out super closely with them, although we played many shows together. One of my favorites, we played at Bogart's with them. We were headlining in the big room, and they were playing a show in the small room over there. And while we were playing what we thought was like this really cool, intense song, they came in with I don't know if you're familiar with Spinal Tap, but they came in with a Stonehenge and lowered it from the ceiling onto our stage, which was, I thought it was hilarious because I thought Spinal Tap was just so ridiculous and funny. But those guys did that to us on stage, and I couldn't contain my laughter. It was really funny. And that's been a running joke for years now when we see those guys, or we've done that riff with other people in different bands over the years. It's been pretty funny.
So going through that process of being in a band, when did things shift for you?
Well, so I'm in my early to mid 20s, and we're playing LA shows for record companies and working really hard and writing songs and rehearsing. And I had just bought my very first piece of property, which was downtown at the Cooper Arms. And I was working the job I had, I was doing graphic design and production work for a big graphics company, and they were running me ragged 10 to 12 hour shifts at least 6 or 7 times a week, I mean. And it just got to be so much to manage, and finally I had to say, hey, I've got to excuse myself from this rock star dream, and pay my bills and make my mortgage payments. So I left that project, and some of me regrets it, but other parts of me, I would never have made it to be who I am today. If I had stuck with that, it might be some crazy, who knows where I would be, having been in that music scene for a while. But
Well,
I
was
bet if
there
I
some
stuck.
melancholy with that? Because when you make a decision like that, it's almost like um, you're closing a chapter in your life, and you're going into a different world, more of a I hate to say the word, I don't want to say the word normal, but
It's true though.
yeah.
Well, at the time when I left that band, I was like, well, I need a break. And then of course I'm going to find another really good band to play with.
Hmm.
And I honestly didn't realize how lucky I had it with the guys I was playing with. They're really good, great songwriters and creative, good people. And I entertained the idea of getting in a couple other bands over the years, but that one was pretty special. So we were lucky to have found each other at the right time and have the right energy. So yeah, there's definitely some melancholy, but also again, like I have a great wife and a good life, and I'm happy. And getting off the road after being on tour or something would have been a whole different lifestyle, and I'm sure I would have had fun. But it's kind of a choice. It's
Yeah.
definitely something that people can choose to do. I'm sure they get weary from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, no, I was really talking about in the essence of the now, of when you made that decision before you got married and anything like that. That had to been and you said you were in your early 20s. You were still very, very young, and
Yeah,
still could go out, go for it type of thing. So that had a bit, that part of it, I would imagine.
absolutely. Yeah, and again, I at the time I thought this is going to be a temporary thing. Then I'm going to go find another project like that, and that would prove to be more challenging. And then, of course, there is a little bit of melancholy or something similar without being so cognizant of it at the time. But
Right.
I just felt like it was going to be something that I would transition into something else equally creative and equally valuable. So that was a long time ago, but those feelings are real for sure. But some of the relationships I have with some of my best friends throughout the state are people that have come from the circle of friends that we created in those years,
Mm.
and the people that came to see our band. I just saw a bunch of them this past weekend. One of our bass player got married this past weekend, and I was the officiant. And that was a really cool kind of reunion of people that we knew back in those days and new people we've connected with over the years. And he's up in Northern California, so I have a whole bunch of people that look to me like as a officiant rock star now. So that was pretty fun. But so many people that we know from those days were there, and it was really nice to see them.
So, but you were in graphic design, which is still, in my opinion, in the arts, because you're a creator. You're creating things. Yeah, it might be for a company, so you might be limited on the creativity that you need, but you at least are able the value of being an artist. So talk about that journey there. Looks like you turned your camera. There you go. Uh,
There it goes. Something happened. I don't know what happened.
okay.
So that was more or less so yeah, again, it comes from the music scene. So when I was about 17, I'm like, I'm going to be a drummer. And we had to make a flyer because back in those days, you had to have a flyer. So I made a flyer or two over the years. And then I got a call from a friend of mine, Dave Allen, who is a Long Beach guy. He had been working at the Long Beach Press Telegram. And he's like, you know how to do graphics, don't you? I'm like, I made a flyer. He's like, that's fine. I'll teach you the rest. So he hired me at the Long Beach Press Telegram for a very part-time job doing stripping uh, basically classified ads into the paper. And at the time, computers were not really a thing, but we had a couple little tiny Macs that we worked on. And since it was such a part-time job, I needed to find more employment. So I ended up taking a job at another graphics house and did cutting with knives and drawing with pens and things like that. And when they decided to transfer over to computer graphics, which was brand new at the time, they looked to me as somebody who had some experience with that. So I, out of a group of about 40 artists, I was one of two that spearheaded their graphic design department, going into the computer side of things. So we did the most basic scanning and the most basic stuff. And over the years, I've kind of stuck to having some of those skills have remained and continue to expand based on modern technology and modern software. For a guy my age, I'm, pretty much on I know what's going on with stuff. I don't TikTok so much, but I know how to manipulate those things. But that all stemmed from that.
Mm.
And I worked there for years, and then got drawn into. So here's the trajectory. So doing graphics, I got drawn into a position at and I haven't applied for a job, but somebody said, "Hey, you'd be great doing graphics for this marketing department at a real estate company." So I went and took that job. And then somebody recruited me from that job to learn to do that kind of work for his business and learn how to do real estate. And so that's sort of where I got into this business over the past, that was 20 something, 25 years ago now, 26 years ago now. So that's where I took the plunge into real estate, was through the marketing side, which stemmed from the graphics side, which stemmed from making flyers from my band when I was 17. So there's the arc.
There it is. That's great. So when you got into the real estate market with, I guess would be would you consider that person your mentor?
In a way, yeah, he definitely helped me. He's not much older, so this gentleman named Michael Ray, he has a tax business. That's his main business. And through his relationships with his clients, he would have he would see into their books and see into their situation, like, hey, this might be a really good time for you to own a home so you can get that tax deduction. Or he sort of had it as a side business. And I learned my way through working with his transactions for a few years, and really was able to cut my teeth in the business before I got licensed. And then once I got licensed, I started doing it on my own. And he's been supportive for all these years, and he still does his tax business, and he does some financial advising still. But he's been a great supporter, and really allowed me to find my own way in my business as I have over the past 25 years, 20 something years.
Do you have any fun stories from the beginning of the inexperience that you've learned from as a realtor?
I mean, so many stories over the years. I remember the initial throes of the recession, where there were some foreclosures, and some of the places I went into with clients who were trying to find the lowest price home they could find were absolutely filthy and disgusting, and little disconcerting in some ways. I don't even want to get into the details, but suffice it to say that it was disgusting. And people are like, oh, so that's what this price range represents. And I think in any price range, even today, there's, here's the average price, and the good one is this much and the bad one is this much. And there's a reason why there's differences in price. Of course, in those days, bank owned foreclosures were a significant part of the business, and that creates another layer of trying to get from a buyer. You have to do a transaction that you're talking to a bank, and the bank doesn't care. Whereas in a normal transaction, you're talking to an agent who's working with a seller, or vice versa, and it's more direct versus having somebody at a bank on an 800 number somewhere in Detroit might be handling the transaction, and they honestly don't care about the deal. They just want to get it done. So that makes a big difference in how transactions go. I wouldn't even begin to tell you all the crazy stories I've had. Lots of fun engagements with people, and I think the most profound part of my business is that when I get involved with somebody, it's a very high intensity curve. We get to know each other really well rather quickly, and then once we're done with the transaction, it disappears almost as quickly. I do keep in touch with people, but that intense relationship that comes to fruition really quickly is always an interesting part of this job.
Yeah, I mean, because in a transaction, I'm sure you worked with through the years, first time home buyers, but even veteran home buyers who've bought and sold homes several times. There's an element of anxiety, because you're talking about big money, their full savings. So there is a lot of anxiety, a lot of hand holding on your end. So I can understand the intensity with that of talking to somebody maybe 4 or 5 times a day to when you close, and then giving them
or
the
more. Yeah.
yeah, the steaks and knives set with your name on it, give it to them, and then the next day, it's like, okay, they're on their own. Now it's time for them to do the paint and everything else, and your job has been complete because you closed escrow. But I would imagine you being a realtor and knowing the type of person you are, and knowing that I believe we had a conversation before about that is referral based is your number one source of income from real estate is referral based. So I would imagine if it's referral based and word of mouth, I would imagine that you do a great job of keeping in communication with your former clients.
Yeah, and I think there's room for improvement there for me as well. But a lot of the clients that I work with end up being friends. And in fact, the gentleman who I just married the other day, um, his wife now is somebody that I met through our real estate transaction, and I had helped her and her former husband find a home, and we became friends. And my wife and they've all hung out together, and a lot of clients end up being friends, which is a great testament to having transactions that go well. But I don't drop notepads on everybody's door, and I do since it's all referral business. It's challenging to be like present in a location. I do business throughout Orange County. My cat wants to come with me now. Throughout Orange County and the gateway cities, and sometimes even farther away, where I don't really do a farm necessarily, where it's like several blocks. But yeah, I try to keep in touch with people and maintain those friendships. It's pretty cool to expand the network that way.
Now, I know that things have changed through the process of the real estate business. We've seen a little bit of dip with the interest rates going up, and obviously it feels like some good things are happening. But one thing I did notice about not only just real estate agents, but loan officers and people basically making their bones from real estate. I noticed that the number of people in the business has dropped quite a bit. Because I remember as a kid, and I remember me being in the real estate business, a flux, especially real estate agents coming into the realm of wanting to do that work. And it, I'd like to hear your take on this, but like I remember, especially when I was in the lending side of things. But I mean, so I would have a lot of relationships with real estate agents because want to solicit them for their business. But one of the things that I would, I talk to because I'd talk to a lot of new real estate agents because I always felt like, well, sometimes it was harder talking to the people that have done it for many, many years. Not to say that I couldn't penetrate that, but a lot of them are kind of have their established lenders. So I would
Sure.
try to kind of get the people that were not, uh, kind of on the newer end of their career and kind of try to build alliances with them. And and because of that, I would talk to a lot of new agents, and I would always ask them why they decided to get into the world of real estate. And I always when they said this to me, I'm like, I don't think you're going to be able to make it. When they said this to me, I'm like, okay, uh-oh, that's a red flag. When they said, I want to be able to have more time, they would say that. And
Or
I know,
freedom. I want to make my own schedule. And
yes,
yeah,
and
I mean, that's an observation that I think you have the experience with. I certainly do as well. And there are days where, like I can go to a chamber lunch, or I can go, play tennis with somebody or whatever it might be. And there's other days on a weekend where I have to be out the whole time. And there's nights at 11 o'clock where I'm still wrangling PDFs and docu-signs together. So, it's not me making my schedule. It's the order of business as it comes through. And if somebody needs me, I'm going to be there. So it's sometimes when I'm on a trip or on a vacation, that's when I really need to have some feet on the street. And thankfully, I have a really great supporting cast around me where if I do need to be out of town for a few days, I have business can go on. Most of it can be done through emails and DocuSign and those things. But yeah, it's definitely not like, oh, I'm just going to do a few deals here and there. Think about the people that are either dropping off or not coming into the business right now. I'm seeing that there's a lot more skilled, qualified agents in the forefront. When things are flying off the shelves and there's lots of inventory and interest rates are low, you can be a marginal agent or an inexperienced agent and get a few deals, but that's not going to last through the hard times very well. So I take a lot of pride in my ability to execute this job with a high level of ethical behavior and skill, and I push the levels of my professional standards in everything I do. So I think I've been able to maintain a modest but steady business throughout these years, even when it gets tough.
Yeah, and one other point I want to make about that is and you touched on it a little bit is if you want to get into the real estate market and you want to be a realtor, especially a realtor, if you want to be a successful realtor, you got to give up your weekends. That's where you make your bones. I mean, because a lot of times you're
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
open
there's
houses.
some truth to that. Differ from you on that a little bit because a lot of the people that a lot of the that is in a way a little bit antiquated when there's like 20 houses to look at, but these days there's three or four. You can do that in one at a time. But yeah, weekends are something that you need to be aware of. But I think if you manage it well with expectations with your clients, that there are weekends where I can go enjoy things, and so it's. But I think a lot of people think that they're going to come in, it's going to be easy money, and anytime somebody approaches me with a like, hey, I want to become a real estate agent, what's your advice? Well, my advice typically is get really good at it first, because if you don't have the skill set and the knowledge of what you're doing, it's really hard to sell that unless you have a reason to sell it. I'm never going to be a hot young girl. I'm never going to be cute, whatever. But I do have the skill set and I have the experience. But you have to be good at the job in order to do this job well. It's not just, oh, I want to buy a house. Okay, there's a house. There's so many other things involved, so many layers of this business that people don't really see unless they really get into it. But yeah, weekends are hit and miss. That's for sure.
But though I do want to push back a little bit on you on that because you're established. You've been doing it a long time. I think a newer agent, you have some clientele where you don't have to be at the weekend every single time. You can kind of gauge your schedule a little bit. But if you don't have any business at all, I feel like a real estate agent should go to somebody like you and go, "Hey, Greg, I see that you're doing an open house. Can I hold it for you? Can I do this for you?" And so
Sure.
that they can get to establish, maybe buyer clients or whatever. So I'm talking about that more, but yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I mean, yeah, if your parents are getting or if your friends are getting married or anything like that, obviously, yeah, you can say no, I'm not going to work that weekend. But I feel like if you're not doing anything, I feel like maybe you should do something, especially early on. I'm not saying some of the established ones, but if you're not getting any transactions, I feel like maybe you should be doing something on the weekends to shake some
Yeah.
trees a little bit.
There's certainly truth to that. And I know
So
when I have a nice listing that somebody calls me up and says, "Hey, I'd love to hold that listing open for you and do an open house." That's a way to generate business and contacts. Some people are very apprehensive about talking to a real estate agent at an open house. They're like, "Oh, I don't want it, the pressure or whatever." So, some people are good at it, and it certainly is an opportunity for people to feel like they're getting some contacts and getting some work done.
so so you've when did you 25? So when did you what year did you get into the business?
So I started doing the work in about 2000 or 2001, and
Okay.
I got my license in 2004 and started doing it more or less on my own at that point. I did partner with somebody for the first year I was licensed in a very specific niche market. Decided that that wasn't the market for me, so I partnered up with the gentleman who was selling a lot of mobile homes, and it was a senior park, so it was a bunch of older people, and we did a lot of really good work. We saved a lot of older people that were on fixed incomes from losing their money through some shady, dodgy behavior that was being handled over there. But I decided that that was not the market for me, and I excused myself from that. But in that process, I got about 100 transactions under my belt.
Wow.
So a lot of very small transactions, but we ran them through the full disclosures and lenders and escrows, and all that stuff became second nature to me. Some people will do it, 2 or 3 deals a year, or less sometimes on their first year. But I got a whole bunch of work done, and I learned a lot. And I learned a lot about what I don't want to do, and I learned a lot about how of communication and effective management of a transaction can be really important. So after that, I felt like I was very well experienced, even in my first few years, to handle transactions at a high level, which I continue to do. So.
You talk about 2004 is really when you start humming it, and that period of time was bliss. There was a boom. Everybody was buying real estate and different properties. A lot of it had to do with stated income, and when you did the stated income, where a lot of lenders got in trouble was you'd have a teacher, with their salary buying a home that was, 1.5 million on a program where, they could afford it when it was interest only for the first 3 years, and that's basically how they qualified. And then, their thought process was, okay, well, I'll refi it again, and because the value is going to go up, and obviously
Yeah.
there's going to be a fall eventually on that. So, from your perspective with that, how did you? I know that you're on the real estate end, but I gotta believe, with all the transactions you've done, you've came across a lot of that, especially in that time period from 2004 to, I would say, 2007.
Yeah, that's true. And I I tried not to engage with that I would call like a shady behavior. The lenders had this like carte blanche to do whatever they want to get the package sold, and then that would sell to the secondary market, and the risk on that paper was not well defined. So the secondary market took the beating, and it was a global recession. It hit everybody. I remember there was a conversation I had with somebody who was kind of getting pushed into a loan that there's no way they could afford, and they said, well, the guy said that by the time we close escrow, the house is going to be worth $50,000 more. Don't even worry about it. You can always refi later. I said, I don't think this is the right move for you. And then in hindsight, I think just having a little bit of that ethical compass worked out for most of the people I had to deal with. In fact, at that time, I was just a few people I was working with after I stopped doing those small transactions. But I feel good about the way I consulted with my clients and tried to help them make good decisions. But even in the following years, I would talk to people that said, "Oh yeah, we bought all these properties and we foreclosed, and everything is I don't have any money left." And there was a lot of carnage from that, and watching my equity in the home I had drop down to the point where it wasn't worth what I had paid for it. It was a very challenging time to be, a solopreneur in the real estate industry.
What did you do to keep ends meet from, I guess we're talking '08 to, gosh, probably what, 2013, 2012?
Yeah, great question. Tough one to answer too, because there was times where, so I had a house, and I had purchased it with a former partner, and I bought her out of it, which put me in a little bit more debt. But I rented out rooms to different, single guys, and hung out, and I did threw a few transactions together and did some photography and some flyers and some marketing stuff to sort of make ends meet, and somehow pieced it together and made it through pretty gnarly recession. And of course, at the time, since I had excused myself from that relationship, I was single and looking to meet, a nice girl. And, when you're a real estate agent in 2007 and you're not making that much money, I know my wife didn't marry me for my money, at least at that time. And she's a great girl, but we met in the middle of that recession, and we're married to this day.
Hmm.
So that has worked out well. She put up with me through the hard times. So
Yeah, she's a keeper then, right?
yeah, for sure.
So through that time period, obviously from, 2013, 2014, then it really started going the opposite way. We started seeing a boom. We started seeing a inventory crisis, and we kind of still have that today where, there's so many there's not enough homes for people to live in. As a result, as made the market go up. They're not building enough for the people that are trying to live here. Um, and I heard this, and I'm sure you're still hearing this to this day, even though there has been a dip with the interest rates going down, but not that, not nothing crazy. Um, I'm going to wait until the market crashes. And to me, that just hurts my ears because, okay, you're going to wait till the market crashes. Okay, so all of a sudden you're going to have this magical job that nobody else does, but you are, and you're going to have all this money, but everybody else is going to be
It's gonna
suffering.
tank for everybody but me.
You're
Yeah,
going to be able to buy that home. The logic in that thinking, I think is really really flawed. I mean, I understand it. I mean, obviously you obviously want to buy low and sell high. So I get the logic and why you want to think that way, but you want to look at it going, okay, if the market crashes, will I have the money to buy the home? And that was the reason why in '08 nobody had the money. I mean, the people who did have the money obviously were able to really clean up, but it was a very
yeah,
small percentage of people.
absolutely. And I think there's another side of that is the people that are saying, well, I'm going to wait till the interest rates drop down into the fours or pick a number. But look to your left and look to your right in any crowd. All of those people are waiting for the interest rates to drop. So what happens then is the buying power goes up and the property values will go up. So if you're in a position to make a move now and it's gonna hurt, but you're willing and able to do it, when that interest rate does drop down, the prices go up, then you can refinance. And I'm not going to say there's a right way or a wrong way to predict the future. I think I always recommend that people make the best decisions for them at the time, and trying to outwit the market it can go either way. But when the market crashes every 20 or 30 years for a short period of time, it inevitably comes back up. And I know we all have seen the prices of real estate go from what feels like pennies 30 years ago or 40 years ago to $1 million for just a basic house anymore. So it's a better place to put your money than Beanie Babies or something.
Well, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but I want to talk about that a little bit. Where do you see, especially the market in Long Beach, where do you see it going? Do you see like as far as the economy is concerned, do you see a dip in the economy? Where do you think like housing prices will be in the next 5 years? Do you think it'll still go up, or where do you think we're at?
So I think in the big picture, I think yes, it will go up. What I am seeing on the streets right now is there has been a tendency, and I'm going to back myself up. So the last couple of years, when the interest rates went really high, I think they were trying to bring prices down. I'm not sure what their motivation is, but the effect of that was that somebody like me, who has a very low interest rate on my house, that makes me not want to sell my house because then the next house I buy is going to have a really high interest rate.
Mhm.
And so what has happened is that the inventory has dropped down considerably. So when there was 100 houses for sale, when the rates went up, now there's 28 or 31 houses in that same exact market. That means the people that have to buy or really want to buy something have a much lower inventory to choose from. And there's more people chomping at the bit, and prices actually continued to rise through that period. The last 6 months or so, I think there's a level of acknowledging that this is now the new normal, or there's some chaos in the markets and a lot of uncertainty. We don't know what's going on day by day these days. So a lot more people are making the decision to sell a home and move on with their lives, maybe change their state or whatever they want to do, versus hanging on for dear life because they have a low interest rate. So I'm seeing much more inventory on the market, and prices are still increasing, but not at a frantic rate. So it's a good balanced market right now. If you're a legitimate person making a legitimate sale or purchase, there's good things can happen with good representation and hard work. So it's kind of a normalizing market, but I am not foreseeing a huge dip. But when I see inventory increasing like I have been, that might have some kind of indication that maybe some people will be more inclined to drop a price down a little bit. I have noticed a lot of price decreases, but I don't think that's in the market value, but I think that's in the ambition value. So people say, well, that one sold for $1 million, so I'm going to put mine up for 1.1. Okay, then they come to their senses and they sell it for 1.025 or something. So they drop the price a little bit, but they were trying to predict the future, that they were going to sell it for much more than the previous homes like that have sold. Does that make
I just thought
sense?
of something because I had this thought the other day, and I'm like I was going to hit you up or somebody in the the real estate market because I haven't been in the real estate market for a while. But as we're taping this interview, we're in the middle of a government shutdown, and I remember I remember being in a government shutdown before that it affected. The county assessor office where you couldn't basically it would basically stop escrow where you couldn't record it. So with this government shutdown right now, has there been a stoppage in being able to record the deed? And if so, is there any way? Has there been ways around that?
I haven't seen or heard of any lack of being able to record
Hmm.
yet. We're in week three, deep into week three of this shutdown,
Hmm.
the longest one in American history. It's very unprecedented. But I haven't seen it affect closings. I don't have 10 transactions at a time or anything like that. But I do have one going right now where one of my buyers works for the federal government in an essential job. He's working, but he's not getting paid right now. So I'm not sure exactly how that's going to affect the underwriters at the lenders, and I'm not exactly sure how that's going to affect this transaction. But we're working really hard to make sure that we have parallel paths to make sure if that loan doesn't go through in a conventional way, we have other ways to get it solved. So in an unprecedented market like this, I don't have a pattern to share with you, except that there's a lot of people going, what's going on? How long is this going to last? How long is it going to be till I get paid? And lenders are trying to figure out ways to work around it. From the recording side, I think that's more of a county and state thing. So the federal government isn't affecting that as much, but there's got to be layers of that behind the scenes. It seems like most people are working still, unless they've been told to furlough. But some people are working for free right now, but it'll
Hmm.
come back to them.
Yeah, yeah.
I wish I had a
Well,
solution for it. I
yeah.
don't.
It's a tough situation, but it sounds like you have a good team around you to come up with solutions for problems like that. Is there anything that you like to leave our audience with that we didn't cover that you want to talk about?
I just to speak on, who I am as a person. I think you're getting a little taste of that, but just want to share that if somebody has a question or a concern, my information is readily available, and I'd be happy to talk to you or a friend or somebody who needs some help, either buying or selling or even thinking about gearing up for it. Think of me as a resource. I know you and I are friends, but there's lots of people out there that might need somebody who they can sort of trust and not feel like they're going to get pressed on to do work. Although I'd love to make money and feed my cats and my wife. Um, but I'm here as a resource, and I'm in Long Beach for the last several decades as an advocate, a participant, and an ethical service provider. And I think it's important for if any of you out there are listening to this, if it's not me, make sure you have somebody that's got experience and knows what they're doing and actually cares about the outcome. It's super important. And clicking on a third party, see this house now, you're way better off finding somebody local who knows this industry and can show you where the cool restaurant is and where the cool bars are and where you can park on the weekends and where you can't. Knowing the city and the surrounding cities is a huge deal. So
You're getting ahead of yourself because I'm going to be asking you that question in a moment about the restaurants and such. But before I do that, you mentioned it, but where is the best way to get in touch with you?
I would say text me. I'm on Facebook, Greg Ernst Realtor or Greg Ernst. There's two of us, two profiles. You can email me at greg@gregernst.com, which is right there. And my phone number is up there. Feel free to reach out. I'm easy to find. If you want to reach Greg Ernst, spell it correctly, Ernst, and you'll be able to find me pretty easily. Or ask a friend in Long Beach. I know a lot of people. If you ask somebody, hey, how do I reach Greg Ernst? Somebody will tell you.
So,
But people misspell my name all the time. So it's 5 letters, one vowel.
so in Long Beach, it's 2 degrees of separation of Greg Ernst, huh?
Something like that. Yeah.
Like it, like it. All right. Well, I always like to end our conversation with a fun question, and you kind of alluded to it in what you were talking about, and it sounds like you got some answers for me. Where are the great places to eat in Long Beach?
So a couple of places that I want to give a shout out to. You told me you were going to ask me this question. I can't narrow it down to one, but there's a few places that I really like, and I'll just tell you some of them. But one that just opened up recently is Due Fiore, and that's on Fourth Street. Really cool, Italian and good energy. They've got a turntable playing good music. Nice family-owned business and very cool, really good food. I like the Taco Surf and the Taco Shore.
Wait, before
Always
you go
love
into the
those.
Taco Surf, Taco Shore, is that place that you mentioned? Is that on Retro Row?
Yes, it's a little east of there. It's Duefiori,
Okay.
and they're the same people that started Baby G, the
Okay.
bar, and it's those people. This is their second spot. Really cool spot. I would totally support them, and you won't regret it if you go enjoy the food there. Very reasonable, great wine list, really nice people.
So now you said Taco Surf, Taco Shore.
Yeah, those places are great. I love those places. I know Jenny at Taco Shore down on Second Street. She's really nice. She started there as just a helper, and then she worked her way up, and she ended up buying the place a few years back, 10 years ago or something, and now she's running it as the owner. She's a classic American dream, Hispanic heritage, restaurant owner now. She's great. I love the Pita Pitaki is a great family-owned restaurant up by the airport. Really good.
Where's
Um,
that at? You're
it's
naming
like
some
on
places I've never been. I'm loving it.
so Cherry and Wardlow.
Okay.
There's a kind of across from Fantastic Burger. There is a little strip mall. There's a Supermex in there and a liquor store, but it's Greek food and really delicious, very reasonable. In fact, I've done some events where I had them cater and pick up a bunch of really good food. That place is really nice. Of course, I love 555. That's a great company. The King's Fish House Company is the part of the same company. Those guys are great. I eat a lot in at my house, and we cook a lot here. My wife and I will cook pretty good food here too. But gosh, I what are some of your favorites, Paul?
You named some of them. I love Taco Shore. I also love Vina e Cucina, and that's
Uh-huh, that
on
place is great.
Nor's Way
Yeah,
next to Thirsty Isle. And then right across the street from there is LV Seafood, best Chinese food in Long Beach, I feel.
cool. Then of course we love our flamin' curry.
Flamin' Curry, absolutely. Naveen, we actually broke bread with him today, and I think you went to the Halloween party there that he hosted.
Yeah,
He does a great work. He's one's off of Atlantic in the Bixby Knolls area, and the other one's off of Broadway and Redondo.
yeah. And then of course near Broadway and Redondo is the world famous Reno Room, which
Hmm.
has Coco Reno, which
Yep.
is a really good spot as well. Spent a lot of pool games at Reno Room. I used to show up there and with a couple bucks, get a beer and a quarter, shoot pool for a beer, and I would have a beer. The second beer was on the person I beat.
Would you show up at 6 in the morning? Because I believe it opens at 6 in the morning.
It's bad habit to show up at bars at 6 in the morning, Paul. I do not recommend it.
Greg, it's been a pleasure getting to talk to you. I know we talk on a regular basis, but as I always say, but when we talk in a podcast platform, I get to know things about you that I probably wouldn't have got to know if we were just getting a cup of coffee. That's one of the reasons why I started this podcast is being able to bring people like you that I'm friends with and putting them on this platform and getting to ask them the questions that I probably wouldn't have asked if I wasn't doing a podcast and learning some new things about you.
Well, I appreciate you having me, and it's one of the things that is a challenge for me is talking about myself. But you made it really easy to have a conversation and get down and dirty. I love it.
Right on. Well, it's been a Long Beach thing.